All right. Our next speaker is Jannek from Bestseller, and he's going to talk us about the project which they've been working on. And then we do actually have a short of time with Jannek because he's going to leave at 4:45 as I promised him. So after when it's finished, if you have any questions, you can just go ahead and ask him directly. Yes, thank you. The stage is yours.
Thanks a lot for the opportunity to talk a bit about what we do at Bestseller Foundation, our priorities on the African continent. And congratulations on the network, on the initiative. I think it holds a great deal of potential. I'll start off by just very briefly introducing the foundation, and I'll talk a little bit about what we're up to currently, one of our key areas of focus shaping up, show a few examples of some of the investments, some of the entrepreneurs, businesses that we're currently working with. Yeah, very brief. So Bestseller Foundation is backed by Corporate Bestseller, a fashion group, founded, headquartered in Denmark. You might know them. Some 25 brands under the umbrella. They're obviously international in their operations, not yet really doing business on the African continent. I personally hope that they will be doing in the future, but let's see. The foundation that I represent, we're based in Copenhagen, but hey, we're working on it, huh? So we've taken first steps towards a more permanent presence also on the African continent. So currently with a colleague in Cape Town and a colleague in Kigali. So what do we do at the foundation? Well, we predominantly invest in businesses that work for the environment, businesses that create jobs, create opportunity. So we're basically looking for businesses that either are already profitable or hold the potential to become profitable, to stand on their own 2 feet, even beyond our engagement, sustain their operations, grow their operations, create jobs. Yeah. Since 2015, when we were founded, we've been involved with quite a number of different projects and investments. But let me zoom in on as I said in the beginning, one of the key areas of focus that's shaping up at the foundation for us, and that's green entrepreneurs, and even more specific for the time being, let's call it waste entrepreneurs. So why do we focus on waste? Why do we focus on managing waste, reducing waste, recycling waste, reaping value from waste on the African continent? Well, because in our view, we must. There's a need to, but we also see opportunity. So we heard some of from Mohammed some of the projections just before. We heard about population growth, increasing urbanization, economic growth, and I think it's fair to say that it's expected that the amount of waste generated going forward will only increase, and that's in many countries on the continent where there at present might not be sufficient capacity, infrastructure to cope with that, and that's really where we see opportunity for businesses to work with waste, to work with business around waste. Yeah, as said, managing, reducing, recycling waste. And this really, because it doesn't really add up otherwise. I mean, we can talk about pollution, we can talk about threats to the environment, we can talk about human health, we can talk about climate change, yeah, we can talk about a resource scarcity, yeah. So there's a need to focus on this, and there's also an opportunity, yeah, because we do need to create lots and lots of jobs for the growing young populations of many African countries. Now, it's not necessarily easy, yeah? And how do we approach this? So the way we're approaching it is that we're focusing on entrepreneurs. We're focusing on early stage businesses, because I think it's right to state that also in many African countries, the fact is that 2/3 of the jobs are created by SMEs, by small and medium-sized enterprises. Yeah, but it's also, I think, a fact that the funding available for SMEs, startups, early stage businesses, well, there's not enough of it. There's a huge gap at these early stages. And so that's where we, as a foundation, see the opportunity to plug in. And we have the ability we have at the foundation, and with that we also think that there's a responsibility really to try and plug in and fill part of that gap, part of that early stage funding gap. And as I said, it's not easy, and maybe our contribution is like a drop in the ocean, but that does not make it any less relevant. So at the foundation, we're not afraid of rolling up our sleeves and try to do hard things, as our friends here express it. These are a group of students at African Leadership University in Kigali. By the way, a university that we've invested into and backed from the foundation side. And well, this great bunch, they represent Umuti paper. Yeah, so they do paper bags out of banana plantain trunks that are left over after harvest. Yeah, basically as an alternative to cut down trees. So that's one example of entrepreneurs that we're working with. We can take the next maybe. We can take Nzambi with, sorry for the poor quality of the images. They look good on my small screen, but sorry. So Nzambi with Jannek makers doing pavers, bricks out of used plastics waste mixed with sand. Another example would be Yo Waste from Kampala. Let's call them the Uber for waste. They're developing an app basically for smarter, better waste management. So connecting businesses, households with the nearest waste picker at the touch of a button. And let's push the button for the next one. That will be Brian and team from Sijani. We're back in Nairobi now. Collecting used vegetable cooking oil from restaurants, hotels, and then he's using that as raw material for soap production, and hopefully, eventually, his aspirations are high and big. Eventually, hopefully, for biofuels as well, even. Yeah. And then maybe final example, yeah, Vuma Biofuels. We're still in Kenya, but now we're a bit further to the west. We're somewhat more in rural Kenya. We're in Migori. And here we have a business that's producing briquettes for industrial boilers, not least for the tea industry in Kenya. And instead of using traditional firewood, they're using bagasse, which is what's left over from sugar production. So these are examples of businesses, entrepreneurs that we're working with, and you will realize that these are except for Aaron, the white dude. But okay, we've allowed him into the party here. But otherwise, it's all about supporting. It's all about supporting local founders, locally anchored businesses. That's our approach, bottom up, basically. And this is about the funding gap at early stages. It becomes even more difficult if you think about funding outside of the continent, right? For local entrepreneurs. Most funding early stage for entrepreneurs on the continent actually goes to expat founders, which is a challenge, obviously. So that's our approach. That's our niche, and what I should maybe say as kind of final remarks, which would be relevant in this context here. Some of our principles in general. We love partnering. We love working with others. We love investing with others. We are fully aware that local presence is key. Contextual understanding is super important. And what we're also aware of is that our quote-unquote mere cash contribution will not do it for these entrepreneurs. It's not enough. So I'm not saying we've necessarily come up with the right model yet, but we're quite convinced that we need to offer more than the cash to these entrepreneurs, be it attaching advisors, mentors for various types of advice, really, yeah. That was just a short one, Pudong. I'm gonna stop there. Yeah? It's okay?
I have a few questions for you.
Sure.
Because now you're not going to be able to be in the panel. So,
Sure.
And then you guys can actually ask questions. It's just for like max 4 minutes. Why? So, what is
I'm
the
gonna
best?
get in trouble with børnehave, vuggestue and school, huh?
Okay.
Yeah.
What is the most interesting sector in Africa which is promising the near future
Yeah.
with your experiences?
Yeah. No, I mean, so as I said earlier, we've been involved with many projects and investments in the short time span that we've existed. So let's call it, we've probably been sector agnostic throughout the years. So we've seen ourselves invest in a university. We've seen ourselves invest in solar home systems. We've seen ourselves invest in rural retail. We've seen ourselves invest in training data for AI for self-driving cars in the Nairobi context. Great. We've done many different things. Now we're doubling down on this thematics of waste, of waste to value. And we think it holds a lot of potential, not least in an African continent context. I think there's a lot of potential for circular economy actually on the continent. Great tradition for making good use of materials and resources, right? We're just calling ourselves waste investors for now. If we're good enough, maybe we'll call ourselves circular economy investors at some point. But that's really where we're focused and where we see potential. Not to say that there's not potential in many other sectors. And I really love this about affordable housing. I think that's super important as well. Yeah.
So, do you have any, just the last questions? I mean, how long is the terms for a payout? When do you expect your payback money back?
Yeah.
I mean, for which long of time do you really?
Yeah.
And your kind of like a risk and assessment for the project which we invest into.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Those are good and very relevant questions, huh? So I'll tell you when we get some money back, huh? No, look. I mean, it's early days, huh?
Yeah.
If we're talking about this this approach, yeah, it's early stage for many of these businesses. It's a sector that is nascent, yeah, or in its infancy. Many places. This is about waste, yeah. So we're aware that we need to be patient. We need to have a horizon that's long enough, and it's about finding the right instrument, for investing into these businesses. Yeah. Do you want to extend a loan? Well, there isn't necessarily cash flow in the early years in these businesses, right? To actually pay back such a loan with interest and whatnot. Yeah. Do you wanna invest equity into the businesses? You become co-shareholders of these, maybe, but it's super difficult, obviously, to put a value on a business at this stage. Yeah. And you don't want to strip the entrepreneur of too much equity either and dilute the entrepreneur. You want to keep the entrepreneur committed, right, and incentivized. So that's difficult. So what we've been doing with these startups, SMEs here, is convertible debt, and I could go on and talk long about pros and cons, but that's the instrument that we're using. So it's kind of a mix of the two I just mentioned before. Yeah. Let's see where we end out. We're fortunate as a foundation that we're kind of call it an evergreen structure, right? So we're funded by Bestseller. The capital is not to be returned. Many other funds would have a 10-year horizon, you know, and they will be super busy and actually trying to deploy their capital early years, and then they will need, you know, to start trying to exit their investments, you know, before they get to year 10, which is kind of deadline for many funds, right? So we have a bit of flexibility, really. Yeah, maybe that in part answers it at least. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. If thank you, Jannek. And if you have actually we do it fast. Like let's take 4 questions. Yeah. Or do you all have a question? Oh, 5 questions, and then we go for, because the timeline is quite. He has a baby. So 2 questions, and then we go.
I still have 2 minutes, huh?
Yeah, it's getting.
Okay.
Okay, 2 questions, and then we go. Yeah.
No questions. Okay.
That's.
Sure.
You've invested early. I mean, this is your current focus, but you've had a lot of different projects.
Yeah.
How did it go with those?
Yeah, I mean, so we still have a portfolio from the earlier days. Huh? A few loans have been paid back. We've seen a few exits involuntarily. Huh? We've seen a few businesses basically go bust. That also happens, and you learn a lot from that. And then there are a few others where we're still invested, and we don't know yet what the horizon for an exit for us is necessarily. So that's really a mix. What would we expect return-wise, right? Because we do have this investment approach. We do believe that's the best approach, really, to try and maximize, you know, what these businesses can do for the environment and create jobs and all that, right? And you know, us seeing the capital return will just make us able to redeploy, reinvest, yeah. But it's difficult to put specific number. You know, what are our expectations? So when we're a little further into the journey, maybe I can answer it better. Yeah.
Shall we say thank you, Jannek? Because
thank you. You're even more stressed about it than I am.
Because now we.
Thank you for your time, and have a good continued event.
Thank you.